The Titans have officially been eliminated from the playoffs after losing to Houston 19-16. The O-line was horrendous, Henry struggled, Levis struggled, but we learned a lot about the future of the Titans on Sunday, and we're going to break it all down now. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome to another episode of the Music City Audible Podcast, presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo. And Justin, we can finally stop talking about it. The playoffs are officially
You can
dead.
finally stop talking about it.
I can finally stop talking about it. The Titans' dreams died on Sunday. They didn't get very many of the results they needed for the wildcard race, for the division race, but none of it really mattered because they knocked themselves out by losing to Houston in the Oilers throwbacks. And this game was a real struggle to watch. So we're going to break down some elements from this game. But Justin, I think what we really need to do now is focus on how yesterday's game impacts the future of this team and what we learned about this Titans team. Some key players that we kind of have a better idea of what their roles will be going forward as we move on to the offseason discussion, looking at the draft and free agency and next year, because this one is toast. Before we get into it all, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Music City Audible. If you're listening to this podcast, let it keep playing, but turn the sound off. Go to YouTube and watch us there because it's a better experience and it's better for us to help us grow. The best way you can help us grow, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment. Leave any comment below. What did you like? What did you not like from Sunday's game? Let us know in the comments.
Tell us why you hate the Titans, why they're ruining your life. Just write a whole essay out there. We'll respond to you. We'll serve as your therapists. We'll head to those YouTube comments. Free therapy. Just comment on how the Titans are ruining your life. We'll be here for you. We promise you.
We'll be here for you the rest of this season and throughout the offseason. Will Levis injured on the last offensive play of the game for the Titans in this one. We're going to talk about that, but I think we need to start with the offensive line because a lot of people want to talk about the play calling, the first down runs. I'm one of those people that's very vocal about, the insane heavy usage of first down handoffs and toss plays to Derrick Henry that were completely ineffective, but the grand scheme of things is that this offensive line is just a disaster. And they've had some, better moments this season where they were able to hold their own and the offense was able to function. But on Sunday, beyond the first drive, the opening drive, which was very close to being a 3-and-out, might we add, if Mike Vrabel doesn't go for it on 4th and 1 at his own 20-something yard line with Will Levis, after Will Levis dives for 4 yards to make it a 4th and potentially go for it. Could have been a 3-and-out there, but the Titans put a drive together, they score, and from then on, the offense was a complete disaster.
Well, it's crazy. First of all, and I know people always say I defend Mike Vrabel so much. I think that was an instance of really good coaching on his part. He's not very Mike Vrabel-like, I don't think, to go for it on 4th and 1 from your own 30-yard line when the game has just started. I personally saw that as him rewarding the effort. Essentially is what I think he did there, because that Will Levis scramble on 3rd down, that was outstanding, right? To escape that pressure, dive for the first down or attempt to get the first down. That to me was rewarding the effort. We're not going to punt after a play like that, after you guys laid it all on the line to try to get that first down. Yeah, you came up 1 yard short. We're going to give you another shot at it. But it's crazy to think that drive happened in this same game, because that was an outstanding drive. They hit 2 passing plays, I believe, of 30 yards. On that drive alone, right? They had the early PA to Traylon Burks that went for 30. And then they had the shot, the free play to Nick Westbrook-Akine that went down to the 1 yard line when they jumped offside. By the way, isn't it so nice to see the Titans take that shot play? They've done that a couple times this year. Remember in the past where the offense was even worse? I don't know if it was even worse, but didn't have a quarterback like Will Levis at the helm. They'd get that offside, and then they'd take like a 4-yard dump-off pass despite having a free play. So really nice to see them take that shot play in that situation. But it's crazy to put that drive next to what the rest of them looked like the rest of the way.
So let's address the first down running issue here, because the Titans
that's what I want to talk about.
That's what I want to talk about almost more than anything. I think this is the biggest hot button topic that came out of this game. Yeah. The Titans called a total of 14 first down run plays. Those 14 plays netted 1 rushing yard. And it didn't really matter if it was Henry or Spears. Spears had a handful that were just as unproductive as the Henry ones, but Henry was hit in the backfield on almost every single first down carry and dropped for a loss on, I believe, seven or eight of his first down carries went for negative yardage. So let's broad strokes talk about the philosophy here, right? Because everyone wants to know, why would you keep running the ball if every single time you run the ball, you have like a 80% chance of getting negative yards, let alone like not getting any positive yards. You're moving backwards on almost every first down handoff that you call in this game. Well, the reason is the offensive line is horrendous. And in this game in particular, they were especially horrendous. Look, we praised this offensive line for doing a good job in pass protection at the end of that Dolphins game. This looked like a completely different group of guys, and it wasn't a completely different group of guys. Daniel Brunskill dealing with some sort of right, ankle injury. Calvin Throckmorton had some snaps in that Miami game, but for the most part, it's the same group of guys who were pretty excellent in the final 4 minutes of that game on Monday night. 6 days later, they can't block anyone to save their lives. One play in particular stands out to me. It was one of those first down handoffs in which Henry was dropped for like a 5-yard loss. You have on the left side of the line, Peter Skoronski and Jalen Duncan sort of double teaming Malik Collins for a moment before Peter Skoronski climbs to the second level to pick off a linebacker. But the moment that Skoronski releases Collins and says, "This is on you now, Jalen Duncan, I'm climbing. Thanks for that. I'm helping you out initially, and then I'm going to get my assignment." For whatever reason, Jalen Duncan also said, "You know what? I'm going to climb to the second level. Here you go, Malik Collins. I'll open the door for you. You can go in the backfield, and I'm going to go try to block somebody else." And there's this moment, if you watch the replay, where Jalen Duncan sort of looks over his shoulder as Malik Collins is running by him, probably thinking, I don't think I should be passing him off to any. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I'm just going to keep climbing anyway. He literally passes him off, has this look like, I know I shouldn't be doing this, and then continues to try to block a linebacker down the field, even though Henry is now met in the backfield almost as soon as he receives the handoff by Malik Collins. There's no one else you need to block because at that point, Henry's not getting to the second level, but for whatever, this play epitomized the failures of the Titans in the run game because it wasn't just about getting beat one-on-one. It was mental errors like this as well, where you're just simply not blocking the guy or you don't know who's supposed to release and climb. There are a ton of issues on this offensive line, but the inability to block on first down, you wonder why they keep doing it. Well, the Titans finally call a traditional drop back pass late in the fourth quarter. The first traditional drop back pass on first down was late in the fourth quarter. And guess what happened? Will Levis took a sack. There's no answer. You either run it for -5 yards or you take a sack for -5 yards. Like, there's no good answer here. You want to say, well, let's just call a bunch of quick passes. Let's throw some slants in there. Let's throw some screens in there. Well, they continue to try screens. I think they called 4 pass plays on first down in this game. And up until it was like 2-minute drill, less than 5 minutes to go, Titans need to go score. So take that out of like the game script element out of the equation here. We're talking about, the first 3.5 quarters or so. They didn't really call any drop back passes on first down, but they did call a number of screens. Those screens didn't gain any yards either. They had a couple had a Traylon Burks end around, Traylon Burks screen, some screens to Henry. Those gained a total of like 4 yards on 4 plays. Then they had the 20-yard play action pass to Traylon Burks. That was the only productive first down play they had in this entire game, was a 20-yard play action to Burks early in the first quarter. It was on the second drive of the game. And they didn't. Should they have done that more? Probably they should have done that more. But even the quick passing elements weren't working. And maybe they need to run more like little quick curls, quick speed outs, quick slants. Yes, but the defense is sitting down on everything because they know the offensive line can't hold up. So it's not like those plays are necessarily going to be open either. And maybe you throw an incomplete pass on first down. Now you're 2nd and 10. I guess that's better than 2nd and 14 after you get dropped for a 4-yard loss on first down. But if Will Levis takes a sack there, it's the same situation. So the bottom line is, as frustrating as that was, and I do think you can put a lot of blame on Tim Kelly and Mike Vrabel for continuing to not adjust the first down play calling. At the end of the day, I don't think there's an answer because you try to run a drop back pass play there, you're going to end up with a sack, a really short completion, or an incomplete pass anyway, and it's almost the same idea as if you just ran it for a very short gain or negative gain. So at the end of the day, the inability of the offensive line hamstrung this offense more than it has. I mean, it's been their Achilles heel all season long, but I think on Sunday it was at its most glaringly, this is the reason that the offense is not functioning on any level.
So I did something this morning that I absolutely hate doing, that I almost never do, but it felt necessary. It felt like Titans fans would want to read about it, and they have. I charted some of the plays. I went back and I looked at every first down play, every play essentially. I hate doing it, but I did it. So I've got the official numbers in front of me. You were pretty close on all your everything you said. 12 first and 10 runs for Derrick Henry. 12 first and 10 runs. They gained 0 yards. Exactly 0. That's crazy. The most successful one gained 5 yards. And by the way, the worst one lost 7. So even the worst one was worse than the best. Like 7 yards, he lost on one of them. The best, and the 5-yard gain was one of the first ones. I think it was the third or fourth first and 10 carry that he had. A lot of them, as you said, more of them, they went for -2, -3, met at 0 yards. 12 first down runs for 0 yards. Tyjae Spears is more effective. Tyjae Spears is more efficient. Let's get him in there. 2 first and 10 runs for Tyjae Spears gained -4 yards. Smaller sample size, of course, but I mean, 2 runs for -4 yards. One of them lost 5, right? First and 10 run, Tyjae Spears ends up in 2nd and 15. Like you said, as effective as a sack, essentially. And the other one only gained 1 yard.
Yeah.
You said 5 first and 10 passes for Will Levis. 5 for 5 for only 26 yards. Okay.
And 20 of those yards came on one play.
Yes, that includes a 20-yard gain, the play action. One of the first plays of the game, I believe, to Treylon Burks. You know, it's ironic in a way. Well, how do you get 20 yards on that play and you only gain 26, right, total? 3 of them were effectively runs. They were designed passes to Derrick Henry. And they gained next to nothing. One of them lost 3 yards. I think the other one gained 2, and the other one gained 0. And then there was a 5-yard gain in there to Treylon Burks, a second pass to Treylon Burks. So the 2 most successful first 10 passes both went to Treylon Burks. The other 3 that failed went to Derrick Henry, all 3 of them. That's pretty telling, right? As you said. So I'm on board with you here that I've said it all year long. I'm not going to deviate from it now. I think largely this is still a personnel issue because hate all you want. There is merit to the idea, the thought process that we can't protect our quarterback. We've got to try to run the ball to stay ahead of the sticks. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's almost ironic, right? Like you got yourself into the situation you don't want to be in by doing what you think is going to prevent you from getting into that situation. I said a lot of words there. I don't know if that made sense to you, but you're nodding like you know what I meant, right? You're running the ball to try to stay out of 2nd and long because you know you can't protect your quarterback on obvious passing down situations. Well, they were so bad in this game that not even running the ball prevented them from getting into 2nd and long and 3rd and long. And it should, theoretically, right? Like you've got one of the best running backs in the game. And whether you do or don't, you shouldn't, no matter which team you are in the NFL, honestly, you shouldn't be losing yards on every rushing attempt, essentially, right? Like you should be getting something, right? 2nd and 7 is a whole lot different than 2nd and 13. Right. But you were essentially getting into 2nd and 13 instead of 2nd and 7. So do I think Mike Vrabel and Tim Kelly need to be better? I've said it all year. Absolutely. I think they should have done a better job adjusting to the situational play calling. I mean, when you're at 9 Derrick Henry first and 10 runs and none of them have broken, maybe we don't need to call the other 3 or 4, right, from there on. That's what I mean by they could have done a better job adjusting to in-game situation. Hey, this is not as effective as we thought it was going to be. We have to try something else. Even if it's for the sake of trying something else, that should have been done. And it wasn't, and that falls on them. But ultimately, I do think there's merit to the thought process of why you're running on first. I mean, you said it. They finally called their first traditional drop back in like the 4th quarter, whatever it was, and they took a sack. And that wasn't the only sack. They gave up 7 sacks in this game. Will Levis was sacked on 7 occasions. And think about it. That's with them being super stubborn with running the ball. So imagine if you got your wish per se, and they weren't stubborn. Does Will Levis set the single game record for the most sacks in a game? I mean, you're sacked 7 times. Does he get sacked 12 times? If we get our way, does he get sacked 11 times? If we get our way, is he out of the game by that point because he's hurt earlier than he did, and he got hurt anyway, even though they're trying to protect him through their stubborn play calling? So I think we're on the same page here. I'm not, again, if you're listening to this, I'm not necessarily letting Mike Vrabel, Tim Kelly off the hook. I think they could have tried to do something better to adjust. But ultimately, I do think this is a personnel issue. I mean, the left tackle was credited with 8 pressures and 3 sacks in this game. And you talked about some of the run blocking that was just atrocious on his part and others, right? Like Dylan Radins was awful in this game, as he's been in essentially every game since he's been starting at right tackle. Peter Skoronski hasn't been his best self these last couple of weeks. I thought he was not great in this game. Is some of that dealing with the miscommunication? I mean, anytime you got a left side, something to I mean, he'd be a sophomore next year, of course, but something to consider to those that want an all-rookie offensive line next year. Essentially, it's like you're going to have these growing pains no matter where these guys get drafted, because it's sink or swim. And you're really just trying to tread water, is what I'm saying here as a first-year lineman. So, could some of that be to blame for Skoronski? And of course, playing next to a rookie left tackle, not ideal. I think for a 6th-round rookie left tackle at that. So I'm with you. This is mostly personnel driven. And there are some great examples around the league. We've had some arguments with my buddy Tic Tac Titans over there at Locked On. I've had some public arguments with him on the Twitter forum. I saw Superhorn get into it with him, and I'll continue to disagree with him, and we'll continue to try have those disagreements in a professional, constructive manner, right? Like, it's coaching, I think, can only do so much when the personnel is this bad. And sorry, I've been rambling, so I do want to get back to you, but there's some great examples around the league that I want to talk about, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up like the idea that this is not just, one of the examples I pointed to, and I've kind of done some thinking on this, is look at what the Bengals are doing with Jake Browning at quarterback. And Warren Sharp tweeted this out a couple weeks ago, during his first start, but the Bengals' early down pass rate has been astronomical with Jake Browning as their starting quarterback. And I've noticed this in particular because I have Joe Mixon in fantasy, and they're not giving him the damn football. He had 10 carries this weekend. But anyway, the point is, they are helping out their young quarterback, who was an undrafted player, who's making his first few NFL starts here, by putting him in easy passing situations to avoid those 2nd and 3rd and long plays, by letting him throw the ball a lot on 1st and 2nd down. And a lot of those first down throws are like, read the defensive alignment. If there's a cornerback playing 8 yards off Jamar Chase, you just snap the ball and throw it to him. No routes, nothing. Nobody does anything. You just give the ball to Jamar Chase, see if he can make the first guy miss. If he can't, you gain 3 or 4 yards. It's like a successful run play, not a great run play, but a successful one that puts you in 2nd and shorter. If he breaks a tackle, maybe you're in 2nd and 2 after that. So 2nd and 7 to 2nd and 2 is like your range there with these quick passes. This is kind of what I'd love to see the Titans do, but even the Bengals, who have a struggling O-line, are not in the same territory as where the Titans are. And something that Mike Herndon, our buddy Mike, tweeted out this morning, I want to point out. So he tweeted the Duncan stat. Jalen Duncan credited for 8 pressures, 3 sacks allowed. That's 22 pressures allowed and 6 sacks allowed in the last 3 games alone. And Mike quoted his tweet, and this is what he said. I'm just going to read it verbatim. Not trying to pick on Duncan, who is just a rookie and needs time to develop, but just wanted to point out that the Titans aren't dealing with normal problems in pass protection. They're dealing with extreme outlier issues at left tackle and have been for 2 seasons. So this isn't as simple as like, a good coach knows how to mitigate their bad offensive line, because the Titans don't just have a bad offensive line. They have a horrendous, atrocious, one of the worst in the league, historically bad offensive line. So it's not as simple as just like, call some quick passes to mitigate this stuff. Jalen Duncan's PFF grade in this game was 40.5. He was the 2nd lowest graded player on offense. His pass blocking grade was 34.3. He was horrible. He was not a starting caliber player in this game. He was not even a replacement level player in this game. And that's all not to say that Jalen Duncan's career is over and he's never going to play another game in the NFL, because frankly, he's going to start 3 more games if he doesn't get hurt. So there's that right off the bat. But he's also a 6th-round rookie who was very raw, who needs some development time. But you and I have been going back and forth here about, over the last few weeks, if the Titans have found their left tackle in Jalen Duncan, 6th-round gem, then they don't necessarily need to address that position at the top of the 2024 draft. Look, let's time to get realistic here. The optimistic, biased in favor of the Titans mentality needs to die down, because in reality, Jalen Duncan is not going to be your starting left tackle. If he is, it's a massive failure this offseason. Give him time to develop, sure. Give him time to become the player that he can become. but that player is not going to be your starting left tackle on a good offense. He might be a swing tackle, which is a valuable thing to have, a great find in the 6th round if you can get a swing tackle, because as we've seen with these Titans teams over the last few years, injuries happen. They happen every year. They often happen to your left tackle or right tackle position. Even if it's just for, a few plays or a few games, it's valuable to have a guy like Jalen Duncan who come in, who knows the offense, can play decently enough. But Sunday's performance wasn't even decently enough. It was so bad that, like I said at the top of this episode, we learned some things about the Titans and players' roles going forward in the offseason. One of the things we learned is that the offensive line is so bad that they really need to attack it this offseason, just like they did last offseason when they replaced 4 of 5 starters. But they really need to attack it again this offseason, and they need to do a better job of that. And it's going to start at the top of the draft, I think. They need a left tackle. They need a right tackle. They might need a center. They might need a right guard. I mean, you have replacement caliber level at those positions. So, not this offseason do you not need to replace them, but you definitely need to replace your left tackle and your right tackle. And so I think we learned that Jalen Duncan right now is not anything more than a swing tackle. And to your point about coaching, would that change with coaching? So I'll let you go here, talk about how coaching doesn't matter, and then I have a point I want to get into about coaching.
Well, I want to, before I do that, I do want to say that I agree that he's very likely a swing tackle more than anything. This offseason, you will need a new left tackle, right tackle, but you got to go a step beyond that. I like to see at least an upgrade at center or right guard, right? And the cards are going to be different this offseason than it was last year when you didn't have a lot of money to play with, and you had to sign a replacement type in Daniel Brunskill and give Aaron Brewer a fair contract essentially to bring those guys back as starters. But we should have leaned on our initial judgment, right? Because we could have very easily, and some of us did say this, could have very easily said, look, the O-line was bad last year, but Aaron Brewer is a downgrade at center from Ben Jones. Daniel Brunskill is a downgrade from Nate Davis at right guard. We don't know what the heck is happening at right tackle or left tackle. This O-line is almost certainly worse, and it is worse. They've now officially given up more sacks this year than they did last year, and they've got 3 games left. That's a very depressing fact to think of and to realize. The point I want to quickly make about coaching is too much chatter about, again, I've had this argument, the San Francisco 49ers, the Miami Dolphins, offensive-minded head coaches, brilliant coaches, not taking anything away from them. Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, outstanding coaches. Go look at what the San Francisco 49ers did this year when they lost Trent Williams to injury for a couple of weeks. They had their worst stretch of the season. They lost a bunch of games.
They lost 3 games in a row.
They lost 3 in a row without Trent Williams at left tackle. If coaching is all that matters and Mike McDaniel can do this with anyone, I don't know why you'd go spend $100 million, whatever they spent on Tyreek Hill and Terran Armstead, by the way. As soon as he got there, the first thing Mike McDaniel wanted was a superstar wide receiver and a left tackle that could actually protect, right? Why didn't he just turn Cedric Wilson into Tyreek Hill, right? If coaching is all that matters and personnel doesn't matter and better offensive coaching leads to better results. How did that Miami Dolphins offense look when they didn't have Tyreek Hill against the Titans like 6 days ago? Didn't look very good, right? Against the Titans defense that we know is not very good, right? So, yes,
they did look pretty good. They did look pretty good on Sunday against the Jets, who have been pretty good against quarterbacks this year. They scored 30 points without Tyreek Hill. But early in the year, when they were missing Terran Armstead, they were struggling on offense. So there you go.
Absolutely. Point is, personnel matters. And you've seen 2 examples of it mattering with both of those teams this year who've got like the 2 best offenses in the NFL. In my opinion. So personnel matters more than coaching. Yes, coaching can make a difference. At the end of the day, players play. They have to be the ones to make plays. A quick thing I want to say about the Bengals, not taking anything away. Hats off to Zach Taylor and Jake Browning, who, by the way, you said was undrafted, was like the laughing stock of draft Twitter when he was coming out of Washington. Like nobody thought this guy could play NFL football as even a 3rd string NFL quarterback. So hats off to them. There you go. You've got your hand up and the job that they are doing. I would also like to point out, though, when we talk about personnel, you talked about their O-line struggling, not nearly as bad as Titans. I think it helps having probably what's, in my opinion, the best receiving trio in the entire NFL. Like I put that up. I said it last year. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. And look, I know Higgins has been in and out of the lineup, hasn't had the year I think he thought he'd have. Tyler Boyd showing signs of decline as he gets up there in age. But, I mean, give me those 3 receivers as your top 3, especially when the number 1 is either the first or second best receiver in all of the NFL in Jamar Chase. And your number 2 is really a number 1, masquerading as a number 2. He's going to get $22, $23 million a year if he reaches the open market, T. Higgins. If they don't franchise tag him, I think they'll tag him, which I think is going to pay him $20 million a year. And that'll be a steal for having 1 more year at that price. So different circumstances that they're dealing with.
We will definitely talk about T. Higgins and the potential for the Titans to sign him in the offseason. That's going to be a huge topic for us as free agents that the Titans should go after. Realistic chances that they all hit the market. We'll get into all that in a couple of weeks. I do want to go back to coaching really quick here because the Titans they fired Keith Carter, who was their offensive line coach for Mike Vrabel's entire tenure so far until this season, and they promoted from within Jason Houteling, who most people call Coach Haas, who has never coached offensive lines before at the NFL level. He was the assistant O-line coach in the room for the Titans. And I don't want to blame Coach Haas, and I don't want to absolve him of blame because we don't really know very much about him. I just want to raise the idea here that this Titans offensive line was completely retooled from last season. Last year, we sat around and said, there's no way they can be worse. They're adding players at every position. Aaron Brewer's moving to his more natural position. They drafted the highest rated offensive lineman in the class at 11 with the 11th overall pick, and he was a day one starter. Now, we don't know what is going on with Skoronski because he hasn't been himself the last couple of weeks. Not the same guy we saw the first half of the season. Of course, he had that appendectomy early on, so don't forget about that. It's been a tough rookie year for Skoronski, dealing with quarterback changes, dealing with a lot of different stuff going on for a rookie offensive lineman to enter the league at a challenging position where you're battling one-on-one very, very many times a game. Sometimes you get a chance to double team, but whatever. The point is, this offensive line was supposed to be at least marginally better, even if it was just only a little bit better. It hasn't been. It's been worse. They've been worse this year than they were last year. And granted, they've been dealing with a ton of injuries, tackles in and out of the lineup. Who's going to play on the right? Who's going to play on the left? We were discussing it all season long, right? If you can remember that far back. It feels like the NFL season lasts 3 years sometimes. But have we seen this offensive line coach up these players? It's hard to say that we have. Now, I will give him credit for some stuff, like Chris Hubbard was a total unknown journeyman guy who never really been a high-quality starter. He got high-level play out of Chris Hubbard for many weeks until he had to go on IR. He got Peter Skoronski ready to go and be a day one starter. Like, he had helped Aaron Brewer with the transition to center. Like, there are things we can say that he's done well, but at the same time, Andre Dillard played maybe his worst football he's ever played in his career in Tennessee. Not that he was ever good in Philly. He did get benched for like a 6th-round pick in Philly, but he got benched for a 6th-round pick in Tennessee, too. It's pretty funny. My point is, like, we don't really know if Coach Haas is a good or bad coach, but I do know that he hasn't done a great job of elevating the players. Now, that could be just because the players are so bad. I just wanted to raise the conversation and get your take on this. Is this a position you think the Titans might be looking to change? And by position, I mean a coaching position that the Titans might look at changing in the offseason. I mean, we don't know what's going on behind the closed doors. We don't know if Mike Vrabel's like, look, Coach Haas, you gave it your best shot, but maybe this isn't for you. Or is it going to be like, this is your first year, you're still learning on the job too, we're going to give you another year to try to get these guys right. Where do you fall on how much blame Coach Haas should take for the offensive line struggles?
I probably don't have anything super interesting to say. I'll be blunt because we don't know, right? I'll say this. Oh, you said, oh, they brought in a bunch of new guys. Again, I think if we remove the bias aspect from it, and a lot of us said this is non-disputable, okay? Aaron Brewer moving to his natural position. That was us looking for a shred of hope because he's not as good as Ben Jones. Not as good as Ben Jones. We knew that going into the year. So they actually downgraded at center, okay? They downgraded at right guard as well. There's a reason Nate Davis got whatever he got, $8-9 million in free agency, and Daniel Brunskill got $2 million. Okay, they downgraded at right guard. There's no doubt about it. Now, we were hoping they upgraded at left tackle with Andre Dillard. They really didn't. He's essentially Dennis Daly in a wig, right? Or like he's Dennis Daly. They didn't upgrade at left tackle, right? It's exactly the same. At right tackle, you came into the year when Coach Haas was hired thinking Nicholas Petit-Frere is going to be our starter at right tackle, right? Then he gets popped for gambling. Okay, Jamarco Jones is going to be our starter at right tackle. Well, he can't stop fighting everybody. Okay, Chris Hubbard, a veteran journeyman, is going to be our right tackle. We're getting good play out of him. Well, he gets hurt. Now, Dylan Radins this year, they've had 4 different right tackles, And I think, did Andre Dillard play right tackle at one point? I might be making that. Or Jalen Duncan did. I think Jalen Duncan has got a couple of snaps there at one point. So they've had 5 different guys play at right tackle, right? And I said this in the offseason. The part I was most confident in was a rookie player that was switching positions from college. That's usually a red flag that you do not have a good offensive line. So no, they don't have a good offensive line. I don't know anything about Coach Haas. Nobody really except, that's thinking about this knows much about Coach Haas. I know some people around Coach Haas. I'll say this. I've heard he's an outstanding guy that was very deserving of this opportunity. You'll remember that Mike Vrabel said it was one of the best coaching interviews he's ever conducted in his time in the NFL when he interviewed Coach Haas for the position. I think Mike Vrabel is going to make some changes to the staff this year. He makes changes every single year. Every single year he makes changes. People say he doesn't change it enough. I mean, they made a ton of changes this year, right? Bringing in Charles London, bringing in Justin Otten, promoting Coach Haas, changing duties for Pat O'Hara and Tony Dews. Like there's a lot of shuffling defensively, bringing in Chris Harris, promoting Terrell Williams, assistant head coach. Like there's so many changes that were made, and more of them are going to be made. I'll say this: call me crazy. I hope he doesn't make too many changes and take a shit on me for that if you want. But I hope Charles London is still here next year. I hope Justin Otten is still here next year. I hope Terrell Williams is still here next year. Maybe I'm in the minority. I don't think this is a Tim Kelly or Shane Bowen problem for the most part. And I think Shane Bowen's just okay. Don't get me wrong. I think you can do better. I think you can do a lot worse. I don't think Shane Bowen's the problem. I give the same example every time. I'll give it again. You remember when this team had one of the worst defenses in the league and they looked you in the face and told you it wasn't Shane Bowen, it was personnel. And we all wanted to friggin' run Mike Vrabel through the streets, right, for that decision. And then what did they do? They switched all the personnel that year. They came back and they had a great defense under the same play caller in Shane Bowen. So I think it's the same thing offensively too. I say the same thing for Tim Kelly. I think this is a personnel issue. I don't think it's a coaching issue. I think this team could be extremely successful with the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and the defensive coordinator they currently have in place. And all three of them have had success, right? Whether that's Mike Vrabel and Shane Bowen together here in Tennessee have had success, and what Tim Kelly did in Houston for a while under Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson. So it's personnel for me first and foremost. You're going to see a lot of changes on the staff. You see them every year.
Yeah.
I think offensively, I'll say this. I think O-line coach is probably one of the more likelier to get changed. I mean, I think Vrabel really likes Tony Dews, and I think he really likes Charles London. I think these are guys he trusts and wants to keep around. But at this point, nothing would really shock me because when you're 5-9 or whatever they are, you're probably going to have to make some changes along the staff. So we'll see which direction he goes in. But I firmly land on the personnel issue.
Yep, I'm inclined to lean that way as well. I just wish we had seen a little bit more improvement. And again, it's probably more personnel than anything else. It's just something I was thinking about where it's like, man, this offensive line continues to make the mental errors of Jalen Duncan and Peter Skoronski, both letting Malik Collins into the backfield so they can climb to the second level. Like on some level, the coaches are got to be held responsible for that too, but that doesn't necessarily mean they need to be fired. It just means they need to find a new way to get through to the guys who continue to make the same mental errors, the same inability to pick up stunts that we've seen basically since Mike Vrabel took over as the head coach of the Titans 7 years ago. Feels like they've never been able to pick up a stunt. Those have always been since Marcus Mariota got sacked 11 times in that Baltimore Ravens game. So yeah, I just at this point, all the fans in Titans fandom nation are trying to lash out at something and somebody because it's like
that's what losing does.
Yes, and not just losing, but an embarrassing loss after you came off a miracle win where your playoff hopes are still alive. You're playing at home in front of your home crowd in the Oilers throwbacks with 89 on your helmet to honor the great, legendary, late Frank Wycheck. And this is the performance. Like, it's just so uninspired. Yeah?
And yet, you're an extra point away in regulation from winning that game. Perhaps you're maybe a late hit away on Mason Kinsey. That I don't know how that doesn't get flagged. 15. They were essentially, if that gets called, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they've got the ball on the Houston 45-yard line. I think if that call gets made, you're 5-10 yards away from field goal range. Now, 5-10 yards is a lot for this offense right now. But perhaps you give Nick Folk a chance and you win that game right there. So there are other things. I'm sorry?
I got a hot take.
Go spit it out. Let's hear it.
All right. I mean, we're 30 something minutes into this podcast, so we're not going to spend too much more time here, but I do want to just point this out because I've seen a lot of people complaining about this late hit out of bounds. At the end of the day, the late hit out of bounds, whatever, man. It's not like it impacted the play. It's not like a holding call that impacts the play that like you would have gained more yards if the other team hadn't committed this penalty and they didn't get flagged for it. Look, yes, it should have been a penalty. Sure, whatever. But at the end of the day, like, go earn your win. And that's not earning, like, getting the other team making a big mistake that gives you 15 free yards is like, okay, cool, you should have had those 15 free yards. But, like, again, it's not like, you know, the Texans got away with a hold on a punt return that put them at the 40 or something that, like, actually impacted the game. It's like Mason Kinsey was sort of on his way out of bounds. He had 1 foot on the white.
He already had one foot out.
It wasn't that egregious. It's not like the guy came in and blew him up. He just gave him a little love tap hit. I mean, 5 years ago, we wouldn't even be asking for this to be a penalty. But today, and I guess in today's NFL, obviously it's a different league now with the protecting the players rules, and I get it, and it should have been a penalty. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been a penalty. I'm just saying the fact that it wasn't it's not like it impacted the Titans' ability to go score. Like, do you want to be handed a free chance to go kick that winning field goal, or do you want to go out there and, like, actually earn it on the field? Like, it doesn't really matter, I guess. Like, take a win however you can. But at this point in the season, like, I don't know. I'm not getting up in arms about a missed late hit out of bounds penalty that really nobody got hurt, didn't impact the play itself. It's like, whatever, man. Stop complaining about nonsense. Who cares? That's how I feel about it.
I'll leave it at that. I hear you. 15-yard penalty. I think it should have been called, and that increases their chances of winning that game if it's called. Maybe we've got a different reaction this morning.
I agree. It should have been called, and the Titans should have had a better chance. But it's just like, is it really that big of a deal that it wasn't called? It's not like Harold Landry's coming to get a strip sack on Case Keenum, and he gets held and yanked out of the way, and it, like, actually impacts the play on the field. It's like after the whistle penalty, like, whatever, man. Just let them play. The refs are in a let them play mood there. Who cares? Now, the penalty I'll complain about is Trey Avery getting called for pass interference. It was absolutely not pass interference.
Correct.
They set the Texans up with it. I mean, that was third down, a chance to get off the field that set the Texans up with, you know, the game-tying touchdown. So that one, absolutely complain about that one. And apparently Trey Avery even went over to the ref and asked for an explanation on the call. I think Teron Davenport somebody tweeted this. Forgive me if it wasn't Teron, but Trey Avery went to the ref and asked for an explanation, and the ref gave him like a look, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he didn't get an explanation for what was called pass interference. Like, at least give the guy an like, you grabbed his arm or you touched him early or something, even if it's not true. Like, tell him what you saw at least. Give him an explanation, but they didn't even do that. So that's the penalty. If we're going to get up in arms about something, that's the penalty. I do agree about the missed extra point too. Like, Titans are now 2 missed extra points away from being 7-7, which would put them right in the thick of the AFC race. The one caveat there is that the Texans would have had a chance to go for 2 to still potentially tie the game and send it to overtime. So, like, maybe they still end up losing that game. Anything else you want to say about that stuff? Because we do need to talk about Will Levis here because of the injury and the implications for the rest of the season.
No, I think we have to close out with Will Levis, obviously.
So Will Levis didn't play his best game. He was on fire to start the game, mentioned 2 30-plus yard completions on the first drive. Then he hit Treylon Burks for that big 20-yard gain on the second drive. Had it used his legs well, had his first rushing touchdown, picked up some nice yards with his legs. At one point, got Mike Vrabel doing the bow and arrow celebration on the sideline. That was probably the highlight of the season for me in what has been a disastrous season. Seeing Mike Vrabel celebrate his quarterback running through defenders after coming off the last press conference telling him, Mike Vrabel said, we're going to show Will Levis videos of guys not slighting and getting the shit knocked out of them. That's what Mike Vrabel said. And then Will Levis runs through 2 guys to pick up a first down, and Vrabel's signaling first down and doing the bow and arrow celebration on the side. That was freaking awesome. But anyway, Will Levis made some plays with his legs, had some nice throws down the field, but ultimately missed too many plays. And I think that, we want to talk about the inability to run the ball, setting him up to fail with all the second and third and longs. And those are all true things that he had to deal with. So I'm not trying to put too much blame on them. He's a rookie quarterback, still feeling his way in this league, making his 5th start, something like that, 5th or 6th start. So he didn't have his best game in, a really, really tough situation, game-wise, situational-wise, with all the long, down and distances he was facing. But that said, he threw a horrible interception targeting DeAndre Hopkins on the sideline when he had Treylon Burks wide open for a touchdown. He underthrew Hopkins later in the game. Now, Hopkins still got to make this catch. Hopkins had to stop and go up for the ball, go up and high point the ball. He's unable to control the ball through the process of the ground or whatever, complete the process of the catch. He's got to complete that catch. But if Will Levis lays that out 5 yards further down the field, it's a walk-in touchdown for Hopkins because he had his defender absolutely beat. So there are too many plays I think that Will Levis missed that if he hits 50% of the plays he missed in this game, the Titans could potentially have still survived and come out with a win. He took a couple of sacks. There was one sack he took where he had Derrick Henry wide open in the flat on one side and Tajay Spears wide open in the flat on the other side. And he had his eyes downfield, which is great. He was looking for a bigger play. But at that point, he'd already been sacked like 4 or 5 times at that point. Just get the ball out of your hand. First down. This was, I think, the first down pass play that was a traditional drop back. It started with Henry and Spears both in the backfield, and they both just ran little tiny quick routes to the flat and sat there as check down options. And Levis was looking for something down the field, didn't feel the pressure, held the ball too long, took the sack. He should have just dumped it off. The mental clock's got to go off in his head, even if the pressure's not getting there, where he's like, the pressure's probably going to get here in a second. I need to get rid of this ball. So a lot of important plays that he will take and learn from in this game. I do think overall his mistakes weren't the reason the Titans lost, but they definitely contributed to it. And so his misplays were big. Anything you saw from Levis you want to talk about in this game before we get to the injury?
No, I think you essentially covered it. I think the interception was a really bad throw. It adds insult to injury when you had Treylon Burks streaking down the sideline. I don't think he played a very good game. I think a lot of the misses are on him. I get that, and I agree. Still trying to coach that out of him, right? I prefer to have that quarterback that's always looking for the big play and has to be taught sort of how to take what the defense has given you, as opposed to a guy that's so trigger shy and never looks for the big play and is always looking for the check down. And I mean, that's how you end up with some of these, Kenny Pickett, or even worse, right? Some of these worst quarterbacks in the NFL are the ones that are too afraid to take that shot down the field. So I'd rather have that problem than the opposite. But ultimately, I don't think he played a very good game. The interception was a terrible, terrible throw, in all honesty. So, but we'll see where he is from a health perspective, and I do want to get into the health with you. Yeah,
and I do think, just to comment real quickly on what you said there, absolutely it's better to have a guy who wants to look down the field, because like you said, you don't want the guy that's just always going to be checking it down. So being able to coach him to pull it back is a lot easier place to be. And ultimately it's his aggressiveness attacking down the field, creating those 30+ yard completions, the free play to Nick Westbrook-Akina, taking those chances, right, ultimately are what makes him a great quarterback. And the Josh Allen comparisons, we were making him last week, I saw some plays like that in this game too. The way he uses his legs, the way he's ready to uncork the ball down the field with a flick of his wrist. The first pass to Treylon Burks was it looked effortless, and the ball's flying 40 yards through the air for a 30-something yard completion. That was an incredible throw, an incredible play. So he's got the tools. He just needs to have a little bit more refinement, know when to take that check down, know when you got to get the ball out of your hand, make the right read on that Hopkins play, because he just didn't read it correctly. But again, all these are things that he'll learn with time, film study, seeing that look from the defense and how to attack it the correct way the next time. This is stuff that will get better as he gets better.
I'll be honest with you really quick before we get into the injury. It wouldn't shock me if it never gets better, and I don't care. Josh Allen hasn't gotten better at that. I mean, this guy, he throws boneheaded interceptions on a weekly basis. So it wouldn't totally shock me if that's a problem throughout Will Levis's entire career. It will not really matter if they surround him with the talent that they should surround him with, like the Bills have around Josh Allen, because they will be a very, very good offense. It'll score a lot of points per game. They'll win a lot of games, and you'll just live with the occasional interception because I got too aggressive. There's a chance that's just who he is as a player. I'm not saying anything bad about him per se. It wouldn't totally stun me if that never gets better.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a Brett Favre-esque type of player who's, they're going to be higher on the interception list, but they're going to be higher on the big play and touchdown list, and you live with the bad because you get so much good. But let's be clear. I mean, Josh Allen's rookie season, he finished with 52.8 completion percentage. That's flat out bad. 6.5 yards per pass attempt. That's not the sign of a guy that's attacking downfield a lot. That is the sign of a guy who's not completing very many passes, because, that's yards per attempt. So the incompletes put a 0 into that average. 10 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. So it's not like he was necessarily, Josh Allen was flat out bad as a rookie, but he showed a lot of potential and he showed all the tools. And that's what you're hoping with Will Levis. Now, we can't just say he's going to be better. He's going to develop into Josh Allen. You and I sitting here today, we're still not certain that Will Levis is going to be a great franchise quarterback. We are certain he's going to be the Titans' starting quarterback in 2024 with hopefully a much better supporting cast around him. That will be the job of Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel this offseason, to upgrade the talent around him. But let's get to the injury, because on the Titans' last offensive play of the game, Will Levis takes what was maybe the most horrible looking sack that any quarterback has taken this year, gets totally pretzel around like 3 defenders, bent this way and that way. He's laying on the ground like Peter Griffin after falling down the stairs, with his arms bent back, his legs cocked. He just looked horrible. And Mike Vrabel said on Monday morning that the Titans want to make sure Will Levis can protect himself before they put him back out there. And on Monday right now, Levis is sore. They will see how things continue to play out. They don't have a plan yet for if Levis will play on Sunday of this next week, week 16. He was diagnosed with a high ankle sprain. Ian Rappaport tweeted that out. So it could have been worse. Nothing broken, nothing torn, no real ligament damage. It's just an ankle sprain. But, we saw an ankle sprain knock Ryan Tannehill out for the last 3 games of last season. Are we going to see an ankle sprain knock Will Levis out for the last 3 games of this season? What is your opinion on should he play? If he is healthy enough to protect himself, not necessarily 100% healthy, but healthy enough to move around enough to protect himself, should he play or should the Titans try to protect him because the offensive line is so horrendous that putting him back out there just risks further injury for the kid?
Yeah, he absolutely should play if he's healthy enough to play. I think, we're talking about a rookie quarterback here. We just said he threw a bad interception. He's learning, the only way to learn is to get these in-game reps, right? There's nothing that he can do this summer that's more important than playing right now, right? You need the bullets to be flying. So yeah, if he's healthy enough, he absolutely needs to play. No question in my mind. I don't care that they've been eliminated from the playoffs. This is not Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers you're protecting, right? This is a rookie quarterback that's still making mistakes, of course, and we're so excited about the potential, as we should be. I'm very, very excited about where Will Levis is going, but he needs to play in order to kind of shake these things out of his system if we think he's capable of doing that. He's only going to get better by playing football, so no doubt about it. If he's healthy, he plays.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that the Titans should play him, not protect him. If he gets hurt again, he gets hurt again. But these reps are valuable experience for him. If you want to get to where you want to go by 2024, if you want that quick turnaround rebuild that doesn't last 3 seasons, then your quarterback's got to be ready to play high-level football from day one of next season. And Will Levis has said it himself. He's saying that he just because he's a rookie, he has enough starts under his belt now that he can't be making some of the mistakes that he's making, that he and DeAndre Hopkins, something was just off in this game against the Texans, which is a real shame because you wanted to see DeAndre Hopkins in his revenge game against his former team in the Oilers uniforms. You wanted to see him put up 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, man. You wanted to see DeAndre Hopkins just go off in this game. And unfortunately, it didn't happen because the Titans offensive line did not allow it to happen. Will Levis missed Hopkins on a couple of passes. There was just too many things that went wrong for this team. Ultimately, they go up 13-0. At that moment, we all should have known the Titans are going to lose this game. The Titans are at their best. Keenum
at home.
The Titans are at their best when they are down 14 with 4 minutes to go because they're forced to just throw down the field and attack and be aggressive. This team, when they get a lead, they just go into conservative shell mode and let's just try to run the clock out even if it's still only the first quarter. That's maybe the most frustrating thing about watching this team play football is that they play not to lose as opposed to playing to win. But, not to excuse it, but I think we're seeing that play out because of the personnel where they're like, shit, we got this lead. Let's protect it because if we just go play drop back football, we're going to turn it over. We're going to give up a strip sack. This game's going to get out of hand quickly if we try to just play football like we would. We have to protect this lead at all costs because our personnel is so bad. So I think that that's where it all comes from. You and I are in agreement there. They have a lot of overhauling to do this offseason, and that is going to be the main focus of this podcast going forward is how they can do that overhauling, who will be available to them, what picks they could possibly make in the draft, who they could sign in free agency, who they can let go, who they can bring back. We're going to get into all of that going forward, so make sure you are locked into the Music City Audible podcast because we're going to cover everything for you for the rest of this season, which is basically like the offseason already because the Titans are not in playoff contention. Should we talk about the draft order really quick and then sign off?
Sure. I can quickly state that they're picking number 9 overall as of now. You know what life is like as a Titans fan? When you win a game over Miami and it bumps you 4 spots down the order, and then you lose a game and you stay the same. You don't climb the order at all. So they lost this. They entered this game number 9 overall. They're still number 9 overall, unfortunately. So nothing changed there. But keep in mind, next weekend, playing the Seattle Seahawks, if they lose that game, they are essentially guaranteed to move up the order in some fashion. because 4 teams who are ahead of them in the order are playing each other. That's the Washington Commanders versus the New York Jets and the Chicago Bears versus the Arizona Cardinals. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think we'll be rooting for the Jets and the Bears in those games because those teams are both 5-9 like the Titans are. So if they win, the Titans are guaranteed to move up the order with a loss. Whereas if those teams lose, the Commanders, that would be their 5th win of the year. And I think the Cardinals, it would only be their 4th win of the year. So there's no guarantee the Titans would move up, I don't think, in that scenario. So you're rooting for the Jets, you're rooting for the Bears, who I think should be the favorite in both of those games, by the way. Jets should beat the Commanders, in my opinion. Bears should beat the Cardinals. If those results go your way, Titans lose, they could be as early as, 5, 6, or 7 in the draft order. So that would be a positive development if they lose. Currently number 9, Malik Neighbors, J.C. Latham, Brock Bowers territory. Still not early enough for the Joe Alt, Olu Fashanu, Marvin Harrison Jr. conversation, in my opinion. So at this point, in all honesty, you might as well root for a loss now that they've officially been eliminated from the playoffs and have a chance to move up that order.
Yeah, at this point, winning does you no good. And I don't want to hear about culture or experience or any of it. I'd love to see Will Levis lead a game-winning drive and then still lose the game like he did against the Colts. Let's see him play well. Let's see some of these guys play well, but ultimately lose the game. Winning at this point only hurts you. Losing helps you. You mentioned the teams picking around them. You didn't mention the Giants or the Chargers, who are also 5-9. The Giants have their remaining schedule is at Eagles versus Rams versus Eagles. Don't really see the Giants winning another game. The Chargers just had the worst loss I've ever seen on TV, aside from the Broncos' loss earlier this year to the Dolphins, losing 63-21 to the Raiders under an interim head coach. We wake up and Brandon Staley gets fired on Friday morning after that horrendous game. So, hey, maybe the Chargers get that new fired coach bump for one game. Unfortunately, that one game is against the Bills, so I don't really see the Chargers beating the Bills, Broncos, or Chiefs. It looks like neither of those teams will be picking behind the Titans because the Titans are already picking behind them and they have the same number of losses. But you mentioned the Jets and the Bears. Totally agree. Those teams could win 1 or 2 games. Cardinals are 2 games. They've lost 2 more games than the Titans right now. So even if they win this weekend, the Titans will still be picking behind them. But the Cardinals could go on to possibly win 2 more games this year. I'm not saying it's likely, but they do play the Bears, the Eagles, the Seahawks. They could beat the Bears and the Seahawks. Maybe. The Eagles haven't played great right now. If Jalen Hurts is out, who knows what could happen. But I think, your best bet right now is to pick 7th if the Bears and the Jets win some games and jump you. So I think when we start doing our offseason projections here over the next few weeks, we're going to be projecting the Titans between 7 and 9, and that's where our mock drafts will land and things like that. So anyway, that is the latest on the draft order. Anything else you want to say, Justin? We are closing in on an hour here pretty soon.
No, very bloated episode in truth for a team that lost 19-16 in overtime and had 200 yards of offense. No, I should probably have 20 minutes less of things to say, in all honesty, is what they deserve. But no, I've got nothing else.
All right. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks even more to those of you who are watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel, the Music City Audible Podcast. Like this video and drop a comment below. What was your favorite part of the game? What was your least favorite part? How mad are you? Give us the vent. Like Justin said earlier, we will be your therapy session in the YouTube comments. So leave a comment below. We'll be back next week to, recap another game, but mostly to talk about off-season stuff because what happens against the Seahawks? Who cares? If they beat them, that kind of sucks, actually. The Seahawks have lost 4 games in a row. Maybe the Seahawks are struggling. Is Drew Lock going to play? Is Geno Smith going to play? We say this before Monday Night Football. So the Seahawks play the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Probably going to be 5 losses in a row heading into the Titans game. So we'll see how that goes. But until then, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.